Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we have been discussing the intrinsic characteristics of the Jivatma. There are totally 21 intrinsic characteristics of the Jivatma. They are mentioned, they are described in the Padma Purana. They are described a little more elaborately by Jamatru Muni, a Vaishnavacharya from the Sri Sampradaya. So Jīva Goswami has taken the description of the Jamatru Muni, and then for each of those characteristics, Jīva Goswami is giving the pramana from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first characteristic of the Jivatma is not a god, not a human, or any other species of life. Atma na devo na naro na tiryak sthavaro nacha. This is the first characteristic. So for this first characteristic, we discuss the shloka from the 11th canto. Andeshu peshishu tarush abhinishchiteshu. 11.3.39. Second characteristic is that na deho nendriyam naiva manaprano na napidihi. Atma is distinct from the body, the senses, and so on. This also we discussed based on 11th canto, 10th chapter, 8th shloka. Vilakshana sthula sukshmat dehad atmekshita swadrik. The third characteristic is that na jadah, Atma is not inert. So we discussed based on the Uddhava Gita shloka, the 20th anuccheda. And the fourth characteristic is that na vikari, not mutable. Again, based on the 11th canto shloka, Visargandhya Shmashananta Bhava Dehasya Natmanah Khalanam iva Chandrasya Kalena Vyaktavartmana. 21st anuccheda. And the fifth characteristic is that Jnana Matratmako Nacha. Atma is not mere consciousness. It is not, Jiva is not mere consciousness. This was what discussed in 22nd anuccheda. And then this same Atma is not mere consciousness. Rather, Atma also has the intrinsic capacity to know Jnatritva, Bhoktritva, and Kartritva. These are the intrinsic characteristics of the Jivatma. So, Jivatma has potencies in addition to Jnana. This was discussed in 23rd Anuccheda and 24th Anuccheda also. How the Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. So, this how the Jivatma has an intrinsic capacity to know, intrinsic capacity to be an agent and to experience. This is a very important Siddhanta. because in the Advaita Siddhanta, the Jivatma does not have the intrinsic capacity to know. Because in the liberation, the Jivatma is nothing but consciousness. No. It loses the capacity of Jnatritva, Kartritva, Bhoktritva. So, but Jiva Goswami is establishing that how the Jivatma has an intrinsic capacity to know, to be an agent, to experience something. Continuing in the same theme, he gives one more evidence in the 24th Anucheda. 24, 25 and 26. In these Anuchedas also, Jiva Goswami discusses. 24th Anucheda we discuss. 24, 25, 26. In these also how the Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. That is confirmed by further evidences. So 25th Anucheda. तथा ईश्वरस्य विमुक्तस्य कार्पण्यमुत बंधनम. भागवतम 3.7.9 इति ईश्वरस्य किंचित ज्ञानादि शक्तिमतः श्री मैत्रेयः. Furthermore, Maitreya said that such is the Bhagavan's extrinsic potency, which contradicts all logic. The complete shloka is like this. Seyam Bhagavata Maya yan nayena virudyate Ishvarasya vimuktasya karpanyamuta bandhana. Such is the Bhagavan's extrinsic potency. Sa yam Bhagavataha Maya yan nayena virudyate, which contradicts all logic. Ishvarasya vimuktasya, for due to its influence, the living entity who by nature is the ruler and liberated. Two characteristics are mentioned, Ishwarasya and Vimuktasya. But Karpanya Muta Bandhanam. The living entity who is by nature Ishwara and Vimukta, but the living entity, because of Maya, Karpanya Muta Bandhana, experiences misery, Karpanyam, Bandhanam, and experiences bondage. So Ishwarasya means of one who is intrinsically endowed with some power. Kinchit jnanadi shaktimatah, such as the capacity to know. So the word Ishvara is generally used for Paramatma. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesherjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudani mayaya. Bhagavad Gita, I think 18.61 or 60, somewhere there. But in this verse, the word Ishvara has been used instead for the Jivatma. For example, there's another verse in the Gita. Okay. So the word Ishvara is formed by The root dhatu is ish dhatu. That means to rule, command, or govern. And then we add a pratyaya, a suffix called as varach pratyaya, which comes in the meaning of having the nature of. Varach pratyaya. So, consequently, the word Ishvara refers to one in whom there exists a natural capacity or a qualitative disposition to control, rule, command, or govern. In this verse, the Jivatma is also called Ishvara, which signifies that it has some power to control. Because the Jivatma has the power to control the body, senses, and so on. And therefore, it has the power to act also. And it has the power to know. Because when will you have the power to control? Only when you know something. Knowledge leads to controllership. Knowledge leads to action. So the Jivatma is not without potencies of its own. In spite of this, it becomes controlled by Maya and is thus not an omnipotent Ishvara like Paramatma. Paramatma is an omnipotent Ishvara who is always free from Maya's influence and is her controller. The Jiva Goswami comments, therefore, that the Jivatma has only some power, meaning a little and not unlimited powers, as is the case with the Paramatma. That is why it's mentioned that Kinchit Jnanadi Shaktimataha. Kinchit Jnanadi Shaktimataha. So, because the word Ishvara is used for the Jivatma, Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. Because the Varach Pratyaya comes in the meaning of having the nature of. So, is that 25th anuccheda? Going to the next, very short. Next, also again, how the Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. One more shloka is quoted from the Puranjana section. Somebody can repeat after me. Vipralabdho mahishyavam.
विप्रलब्धो महिष्यैवम्
Sarva prakriti vanchitaha.
सर्वप्रकृतिवञ्चितः
नेच्छन्ननुकरोत्यज्ञ
नेच्छन्ननुकरोत् यज्ञः
क्लैब्यात् क्रीडामृगो यथा.
क्लैब्यात् क्रीडामृगो यथा.
So, when we read the 4th canto, 25th chapter, Puranjana, Narada Muni describes an allegorical story of Puranjan, King Puranjan. Puranjan represents a living entity. Puranjan meets a woman and then he gets married to the woman. And then how that Puranjan completely follows, he becomes subservient to that particular woman. That is how the 25th chapter describes. So that Puranjan represents a living entity and that woman represents the material intelligence. How the Jivatma becomes subservient to the material intelligence. So Vipralabdho Mahishyavam. In this way, being deluded, Sarva Prakriti Vanchitaha. Prakriti Vanchitaha means being cheated. Thus deluded, Vipralabdha and cheated of his entire nature by the queen, Mahishya. The Puranjan being cheated and deluded of his entire nature by the queen. Sarva Prakriti Vanchitaka. Sarva Prakriti. Prakriti here means nature. He was cheated of his entire nature by the queen. The ignorant, Agyaha, the ignorant king, Klaibyat. Klaibyat means, Krishna also uses the word Klaibya. Klaibyam masma gamapartha naitatvai upapadyate. Why are you acting like an impotent? So ignorant king impotently Klaibyat anukaroti. Anukaroti means imitated. Imitated his wife. Na ichan, although not wanting to. Without wanting to, but imitated his wife. Krida mrugo yata, like a pet animal. Arjuna also asked that question, the third chapter. Shloka. Anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Atakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. What is it which impels a living entity to commit sin? Although he does not desire anichannapi varshneya, but it seems he is forced to commit a sin. So, na ichan, na ichan anukaroti. Without wanting to, the Jivatma imitated his, the king importantly imitated his wife like a pet animal. Explanation is given. Mahishi refers to Puranjani, the women which the Puranjan met. Mahishya means Puranjanya vipralabdaha. Puranjanaha sarvaya prakritya jnanadi rupaya vanchitas tyajitaha. San nechan tadichaya tadichayaivetyartah. Tadichaya eva ityartah. Anukaroti means tad dharmam atman adyasyati. Tad dharmam atman yadyasyati. Tad dharmam atman yadyasyati. So, Vipraladdaha being deluded by the queen Puranjani. Puranjana was cheated of, meaning that he was made to abandon his entire nature. He was made to abandon his entire nature in the form of the self-awareness. And so on. Sarvaya prakritya jnanadi rupaya vanchitas tyajita. And nature, without wanting to, means that he acted according to her desires alone. Tad ichaya eva ityartha. And the word imitated, anukaroti, means that he superimposed her phenomenal characteristics upon his own true self. Taddharmam atmanam adyasyati. He superimposed her phenomenal characteristics upon his own true self, becoming thus identified with her qualitative nature. So, Jivatma, forgetting his own Swarupa, he simply acts according to the dictates of the Maya. Atra Jīvasya Shaktimattayam So, atra Jīvasya Shaktimattayam Haravidyanattu tirohitam tatokhyasya bhanda viparyayau ityetad sutram apyanusandeyam Shri Naradaha Shri Prachina Barisha. So, Jīva Goswami is also quoting a Brahma Sutra. regarding the Jiva's being intrinsically endowed with potency, the following Brahma Sutra should also be considered. What is that Brahma Sutra? The Brahma Sutra is that Paravidyanatu tirohitam tato hyasya bandha viparyayav. By the will of Bhagavan, Paravidyanat. However, the Jiva's intrinsic qualities are obscured, because from him proceed the self's bondage and liberation. Commentary. So the verse cited here is part of an instruction that Narada imparted to King Prachina Parishat. So Narada speaks an allegorical story. He explains the nature of the Jiva and its bondage in the material body. In the allegorical story, Jiva is compared to the king Puranjan, and the intelligence is likened to the queen called Puranjani. And the Jiva is depicted as a king implies that it has some power to control and is a sort of a ruler or a Ishvara. An adjective used for the Jiva in the verse from the previous anuccheda. When, however, the Jiva identifies with the intellect, which gives rise to the notions of I and mine. When, however, the Jiva identifies with the intellect, which gives rise to the notions of I and mine, he behaves just like a husband who is fully under the control of his wife. A husband who is fully under the control of his wife. Similarly, the Jivatma is completely under the control of the Maya. That's why the Puranjan imitates the actions of the Puranjani, the material intelligence. And this is summed up in Narada's own words. Later, Narada sums up the entire thing, the 29th chapter of the 4th canto. So Narada says that Purusham Puranjanam Purusham Puranjanam Vidyat Yadvyanak Yatmana Puram Ekadvi Trichatushpadam Bahupadam Apadakam. One should know Puranjan, the creator of the city. The creator of the city, that means the body. So Puranjana means Tatra Swakarmabhihi Puram Shariram Janayati iti Puranjano Jivaha. So Puranjan refers to the Jivatma, who is the creator of the city of his own body, according to his karma. One should know the Puranjana to be the Jiva who produces a city for himself in the shape of a body that has either one leg, two legs, or three legs, four legs, or numerous legs, or no feet at all. For different bodies, sometimes there are some bodies have no feet, like a snake or reptiles. Some bodies have one leg. Some bodies have two legs. So, and then Narada further says, Buddhim tu pramadam vidyan mamaham itiyat kritam yam adhishtaya dehesmin puman bhunkte kshabir gunan. One should know the young woman Puranjani to be conditioned intelligence, intellection, which give rise to the notions of me and mine. So identifying himself with this function, the Jivatma in the body experiences the various sense objects through the senses. So the explanation given here, namely that through identification with the intellect, the Jiva is cheated of his entire nature. indicates that the self must possess innate powers. But the purpose of this anuccheda is that the Jivatma has innate powers. Because the Jivatma has innate powers, that is why it is mentioned that the Jivatma is cheated of his entire nature. The Jivatma must have innate powers such as cognition and awareness, but that are overshadowed when in contact with the conditioned intelligence, buddhi. And this is confirmed with the Brahma Sutra verse cited by Jīva Goswami, in which it is said that the self's attributes are obscured, are made manifest by the will of Bhagavan. This is the 26th Anucheda. So same theme, how the Jivatma is potency is intrinsic. So if you see 24, 25 and 26, all the three verses quoted have the similar theme. So the Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. Jivatma has, because of the 24th Anucheda, the verse spoken by Haryeshva was quoted. The analogy how a man through the association with her unchaste wife simply follows the movements of the unchaste wife, the man has fallen from his glory. Similarly, Jivatma, by the association with the Maya, has fallen from his glory. That is the 24th Anucheda. 25th Anucheda, Maitreya Rishi's verse. The Jivatma is mentioned by the word Ishvara. Although the Jivatma is Ishvara and Vimukta, but the Jivatma has become Karpanya and Bandhana. He experiences misery and experiences bondage by the power of Maya. And 26th Anucheda from the Puranjan story. Same theme. So now the fifth quality is discussed. The Jivatma has an intrinsic, Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. Jivatma is not mere consciousness, but Jivatma is not mere consciousness. Jivatma has potencies in addition to Jnana. And the Jivatma's potency is intrinsic. That is the fifth characteristic. Now let us go to the sixth characteristic. The sixth and seventh quality. The sixth quality is that Swasmai Swayam Prakasha, conscious of itself. And the seventh quality is Swayam Prakasha, self-luminous. Swasmai Swayam Prakasha and Swayam Prakasha. The sixth quality is that conscious of itself, and seventh quality is self-luminous. These are described in 27th Anucheda. These two characteristics. So, Purvoktam evartam vyanjayitum swasmai swayam prakasha ityuktam. So, to clarify the above meaning, what is the above meaning? The previous characteristics. What is that? The Atma is not mere consciousness. Atma is not mere jnana, but Atma is intrinsically endowed with the cognitive awareness. So to clarify this above meaning, Jamatri Muni said, the Jivatma is conscious of itself and self-luminous. Swasmai Swayam Prakasha Syat. That is quality 6 and 7. Tata Bhutatvam Cha Vilakshanaha Ityad Yukta Padya Eva Swadruk Ityanena Vyaktimasti. So the self's characteristic of self-luminosity was expressed in anuccheda 19 by the word Swadruk. How the Jivatma is has a characteristic of self-luminosity. It was already expressed in the 19th Anucheda Shloka, because in that Shloka the word Swadruk was there. That means self-aware. The Bhagavatam 11.10.8. The principal verse of that 19th Anucheda. So, Tatra Prakashastavat Gunadravya Bedena Vividaha. Prakashastavat. The luminosity is of two kinds. Guna Dravya Bedena Vividaha. So we are here. Guna Dravya Bedena Vividaha. So based on the distinction made between a luminosity as a quality and luminosity as a substance, Dravya. Pratamo Nijashrayasya Spurti Rupaha. The first kind of luminosity is that which makes visible the source of its own luminosity. The first kind of luminosity, that means as a guna. Luminosity as a guna is that which makes visible the source of its own luminosity. Nija ashrayasya spurti rupa. Dvitiyaha swa paraspurti nidanam vastu vishesha. The second kind is the specific luminous entity itself that is instrumental in making itself and other objects visible. The second kind is a specific luminous entity itself that is instrumental in making itself also visible and also other objects visible. These are the two types of luminosity.
Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, how do we understand the self-luminosity? Because this luminousness is not per se visible to the eyes, or it is the Jnanamaya luminosity, or it is what sort of a luminosity we are discussing? Self-luminosity.
This will be this will be elaborated in this one. Essentially, see, for example, a bulb is self-luminous. But it is not self-aware. Bulb is swayam prakasha. Bulb is swayam prakasha, but bulb is not self-aware. There are other objects like a book or a table. They need a light source to be seen by the eye. They are dependent on a light source to be seen by the eye. But on the other hand, bulb is not dependent on a light source to be seen by the eye. That's why bulb is called as self-luminous, swayam prakasha. Whereas other objects, they need a light source to be seen by the eye. The bulb is actually does not need a light source, because the bulb itself is a light source. Bulb is swayam prakasha, but bulb is not self-aware, because bulb is actually inert object. Bulb cannot know itself, because bulb is actually inert object. It is lifeless. On the other hand, Atma is swayam prakasha and also swadruk. Atma can know itself, and Atma is also like a bulb, it is swayam prakasha. It is self-luminous. That is what is going to be described. So basically, first, Jīva Goswami is saying that the prakasha has two types. It can be based on guna and dravya. When we take prakasha as a guna, nijashrayasya spurti rupa. It that which makes the source of its own that which makes visible the source of its own luminosity. Prakasha as a guna. But prakasha as a dravya, prakasha as a dravya is that is instrumental in making itself visible and also other objects visible. This is the two concepts of the prakasha. Let us understand this and then we will go ahead. Yeah, at least these are the two kinds of prakasha. So it will become more clear. Tatra atmano dravyatvad ayameva grhyate. In the particular instance, since the Atma is accepted as a substance, that is dravya, since the Atma is accepted as a substance, tatra atmano dravyatvad ayameva grhyate yata deepaschakshuhu deepaschakshuhu prakashayan स्वपरस्फूर्तिं स्वयमेव करोति न तु घटादि प्रकाशवत् तदादि सापेक्षः तस्माद् अयं स्वयं प्रकाशः तथापि त्वं प्रति न प्रकाशते यत एव जड इत्युच्यते. So in the particular instance, since the Atma is accepted as a substance, only the later type of luminosity is applicable. Later state of luminosity is applicable. For example, a lamp in illuminating the eye makes both itself visible and also other objects visible without dependence on another light to reveal it. In the case of a clay pot is dependent on another light source. But the lamp makes both itself visible and also makes other objects visible of its own accord. Therefore, the lamp is called as Swayam Prakasha, self-luminous. But the lamp is not self-revealing in regard to itself. Lamp is not self-revealing in regard to itself, and therefore it is said to be inert or unconscious. Because the lamp is jada. Lamp is not self-revealing in regard to itself. Lamp does not have consciousness. It is an inert matter. But in the case of the Atma is actually self-revealing in regard to itself. So,
Prabhuji, the Sanskrit word for self-revealing is drik. No, you said
Swadrik.
Swadrik. Okay.
Swadrik. So lamp is only Swayam Prakasha, but not Swadrik. But the Jivatma is Swayam Prakasha as well as Swadrik. So Atma tu Swam Param cha Prakashayan Swatmanam prati Prakashamanatvat Swasmai Swayam Prakashaha Yatayeva Chidrupa Uchyate. The difference between the lamp and Atma is that the lamp is that Tatapi Swam Prati na Prakashate. यत एव जड इत्युच्यते. But Atma tu swam param cha prakashayan swa atmanam prati prakashamanatvat swasmai swayam prakashah yata eva chidrupa uchyate. So the Atma, on the other hand, illuminates both itself and others, but in the sense the Atma is also self-revealing in regard to its own self. Because the Atma is self-aware. The Atma is self-aware. As Atma, we know, I am this. Atma is not Jada, is self-aware. Therefore, it was said that it is self-illuminating of its own self. Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. Self-illuminating of its own self. Or in other words, Atma is self-aware and self-luminous. Swadrik and Swayam Prakasha. So for this reason, it is said to be inherently of the nature of consciousness, that is Chidrupa. So the light bulb is only Swayam Prakasha. But Atma is Swadrik and Swayam Prakasha. Or another way to say is that Atma is Swayam Prakasha and Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. Swadrik can also be said in another way, Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. That means the Atma is actually self-aware. Atma is self-revealing in regard to its own self. I am Ramesh. I am Suresh. I am a manager. So Atma knows itself. But bulb, can the bulb say that I am actually Philips 50 watt bulb? No, bulb is actually inert. Bulb does not know itself. Bulb is not self-revealing in regard to its own self. But bulb can reveal itself to other people, and bulb can reveal other objects also to other people, because bulb is Swayam Prakasha. And apart from bulb, the other objects, table, book, or a chair, these objects, they depend on an external light source in order to be known by others. But bulb at least does not depend on an external light source. Bulb can reveal itself and reveal other objects to others. But bulb is not self-revealing in regard to its own self. So, further, I'll just come.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji is coming in 1 minute.
So, next paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I have a doubt here. So this Swayam Prakasha is not the awareness of oneself, to be the Atma, not the body. So that is not the Swayam Prakasha. So the Swayam Prakasha means identification with the body, with the designations of the body. So is that what is the...
No, Swayam Prakasha means Swayam Prakasha basically means that which makes itself and other objects visible of its own accord. Light bulb example. Light bulb is actually Swayam Prakasha. Like bulb actually makes itself visible to other people. Bulb also makes other objects visible to people. Bulb does not depend on another light source to make itself visible. That is Swayam Prakasha. On the other hand, apart from the bulb, if we take any other object, if we take a building or a table or a chair, they depend on another light source to make themselves visible. But the bulb is, on the other hand, because it is Swayam Prakasha, it does not depend on any other light source. It actually makes itself visible to other objects. That is what is called as Swayam Prakasha. But the bulb is not Swadrik, or the bulb is not Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. That means that bulb is not self-revealing in regard to its own self. Bulb is not self-revealing in regard to its own self, because the bulb cannot know itself. Because the bulb is inert. Bulb is inert. But on the other hand, the Jivatma is Swayam Prakasha as well as Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. Or we can say Jivatma is Swayam Prakasha and also Swadrik. Because the Jivatma, just like a bulb is Swayam Prakasha, similarly Jivatma is Swayam Prakasha. Jivatma does not depend on some external source in order to make itself visible. And secondly, Jivatma can know itself. Jivatma is conscious of itself, can know itself. Therefore, it is Swadrik. That is the meaning actually.
Right, Prabhuji. Yeah, that's what I want to know. The Swadrik is what is... Swadrik is knowing about itself means what? Knowing its true self, or his the Jiva's connection with the body. So that is Swadruk is so when I'm in this body, so I identify myself to be so and so. So is that is the Swadruk, or is that my identification, my real identification as Jivera Swarupa Krishna Nityada? So is that the Swadruk that the Jiva possesses?
Just the fact that knowing oneself, the Jivatma's knowledge is covered. That is by the avidya. That is, but the fact is that the Jivatma is conscious by nature. It is not inert. Currently the Jivatma has forgotten his identity, his spiritual identity. So that is another subject matter. But the fact is that
maybe,
but just the fact that we are conscious of our own.
Yeah.
That is
So, which is the inert nature of the Jivatma. That is what is Jiva Goswami is trying to prove here. Okay. And one more thing, Prabhuji, like in the Anuccheda 24, as we are discussing the case of Puranjan and Puranjani, the Puranjani to be the intelligence, material intelligence, right? During the Jiva, the Puranjan. So, Prabhuji, like in our case, as a sadhaka, at least theoretically, our intelligence is empowered to know have this one that I'm not the body, I am the soul, I am the servant of Krishna, I am eternal servant of Krishna. So at least theoretically, the intelligence is now equipped with this knowledge, no, Prabhuji. So in spite of this, if you see the Jiva, still, we identify with the matter only, with the body only, with the material things only. So even though the intelligence is, the material intelligence is somewhat getting purified, still the Jiva is identifying with the, I'm not talking about asking about from what Jiva Goswami is trying to this one. I could understand what Jiva Goswami is trying to this one. But from the other perspective, I'm just asking, even though the intelligence is purified, still the Jiva, is trying to associate with matter only. So in that case, can we say how much does this analogy of this Jiva Puranjan covered by Puranjani, allude by Puranjani actually works, Prabhuji?
Yeah, we have theoretical knowledge, but because we are practitioners, sometimes living the practicing bhakta, because he is struggling with the anarthas, there is sometimes Vishaya Sangara, battle with the senses. So sometimes a devotee also identifies himself with the body or mind and senses, and he forgets his identity. So that happens in the Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, or in the practicing stage, because of the anarthas. It takes, but when a person becomes completely purified by the bhakti, then when a person living is touched by the Hladini potency in the Bhava stage and the Prema stage, then one comes to such a stage that one has gone beyond the avidya. The further material desires or identification with the body and matter, that will not arise. But till that stage, yeah, there is definitely there's a struggle is there.
So, which means basically it's not the intelligence, it's not only the intelligence which covers the, the true knowledge of the Jiva. So it's Jiva's own anarthas and, right, the vasanas.
Yeah,
that
he is identifying with them. So therefore, he gets covered.
Yes. Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
So taduktam anyairapi means others have also defined self-luminosity. Swayam prakashatvam swavyavahare paran apekshatvam avedyatve satya paroksha vyavahara yogyatvam veti. Va iti. So others here refers to tadukta manyairapi. It refers to there is a particular learned scholar Chit Sukacharya comes in the Advaita Sampradaya. Chit Sukacharya in his Tattva Pradipika have also defined self-luminosity, that is Swayam Prakashatva, as being that which in its own operative function is not dependent on any external source. Swayam Prakasha means Swavyavahare Paran Apekshatvam, Para Anapekshatvam. In its own operative function is not dependent on any external source. Yeah, table or a chair, it is dependent on external source. It is dependent on an external light source to reveal itself. But if we take a light bulb or if we take a sun is not dependent on another external source to reveal itself. And that is the meaning of Swayam Prakasha. And Avedyatve Satya Paroksha Vyavahara Yogyatvam Va iti. That which, although imperceptible, Avedyatve, but is capable of being immediately or directly realized. So, Swayam Prakasha is also defined in the, another definition is given, second definition. That which is, although imperceptible, Avedyatve, but is capable of being immediately or directly realized. Satya Paroksha Vyavahara Yogyatvam Va iti. That means Aparoksha Vyavahara Yogyatva. Avedyatve Satya Paroksha Vyavahara Yogyatvam Va iti. So this point will be elaborated in the commentary. We'll see. So in regards to the first definition of Swayam Prakasha, Tatra Purvatra, that means Para Anapekshyatva Swarupa Lakshane Deepa Sadharnya Jadatva Varanaya Swasmai Padam Apeksham Uttaratratu Spashtatartam Ataha Swadrik Swasmai Swayam Prakasha Ityartaha. So in regard to the first definition of Swayam Prakasha, which specifies the intrinsic characteristic of the self-luminosity as being independent of any external light source. That's the first definition, independent of any external source. So the word swasmai is needed to avoid its being identified as inert. Like a lamp. Lamp is actually inert. The lamp is actually inert by nature. So therefore, lamp is Swayam Prakasha, but not Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. Lamp is not self-revealing in regard to its own self. It is not Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. It is only Swayam Prakasha. So therefore, the word Swasmai in regard to its own self is needed to avoid its being identified as inert. Like a lamp. In regard to the second definition, it is evident that a lamp and other similar luminous objects are perceptible, which violates the definition. It is evident that a lamp and other similar luminous objects are perceptible. They are Vedyatva, so which violates the definition. Hence, the word swasmai is needed to clarify the meaning of the word that succeeds it, Swayam Prakasha. Therefore, the word swadrik means swasmai Swayam Prakasha. So, this particular paragraph, we will come back again because after going through the commentary. So, according to Chitsukacharya, he has given two meanings of the word Swayam Prakasha. two definitions of the word Swayam Prakasha. The first definition is that which is not dependent on external source. Second definition is that although it is imperceptible, but it is capable of being immediately directly realized. Avedyatve sati aparoksha vyavahara yogyatvam. Avedyatve sati aporoksha vyavahara yogyatvam. That's the second definition. And there is a comment on the second definition. To this point will come then. Or let us just go through the commentary. It will become more clear. So in this section, Jīva Goswami elaborates on the meaning of the word Swasmai, Swayam and Prakasha, which appear in the second half of the second verse of Jāmatra Muni quoted in Anuccheda 19. So Jāmatra Muni shloka, again, if we go back. This is Jāmatra Muni's 4 shlokas describing the Jivatma. The second shloka, the second part. So we have discussed the first shloka, Jivatma's characteristic. The second shloka, na jado we have discussed. Na vikari we have discussed. Jnana matratmako nacha. This characteristic also we discussed. Now this part. Swasmai swayam prakashaha. Swasmai swayam prakashaha. This is the term we are discussing. And then Syad Eka Rupaka Swarupa Bhak, that will be next Anuccheda. Swasmai Swayam Prakasha, that's what we are discussing. So, Jīva Goswami is elaborating on the meaning of the words Swasmai, Swayam and Prakasha, which appear in the second half of the second verse of the Jāmatra Muni quoted in Anuccheda 90. Swasmai means to oneself. And Swayam Prakasha means self-luminous. So together these words signify that which is self-luminous and self-aware. So Atma is Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. Basically it means that Atma is self-luminous and also self-aware. So the word Prakasha, which literally means light. So it can refer either to the quality of illumination or to the luminous object itself. That means it can refer to the guna or the dravya. If it refers to the quality of illumination, that it means it refers to the guna. If it is referring to the luminous object, that means it is a dravya. As a quality, luminosity is that which illumines or reveals its own. As a quality, luminosity is that which illumines or reveal its own source. So the quality actually reveals its source. But if we take the light as a substance, as a luminous object, it is instrumental in revealing itself and other objects. Revealing itself and also other objects. If we take the light, luminosity as only a quality, it reveals its own source. But if we take the luminosity as the object, then it is instrumental in revealing itself and also other objects. Just like a light bulb reveals itself to the eye and also illuminates other objects in the vicinity. So a light bulb is therefore Swayam Prakasha, self-luminous. Whereas the objects like a table or a book need a light source to be seen by the eye. Therefore, the table or a book, they are not Swayam Prakasha, they are not self-luminous. But the light bulb is not self-aware. Therefore, it is called as a jada, inert. But the Atma, however, is not only self-luminous, but also self-aware. Furthermore, the Atma illuminates itself and other objects, and it is also conscious of itself. Conscious of itself. That is indicated by the word swasmai. Swasmai Swayam Prakash. For this reason, the Atma is called a Chidrupa, or inherently of the nature of consciousness. So then Jīva Goswami cites the definition of Swayam Prakasha given by Chitsukacharya, a famous Advaitavadi of the 13th century. The Chitsukacharya begins his book called Tattva Pradipika with the question, what is the meaning of the term Swayam Prakasha? Ato atakoyam swaprakasha shabdartah. So what is the meaning of Swayam Prakasha? And then he provides 11 definitions of the word Swayam Prakasha and refutes them one by one. And then he showing that only the last definition is the flawless definition of Swayam Prakasha. Out of the 11 definitions provided by Chitsukacharya, Jīva Goswami has here cited the 9th and the 11th definition. 9th and the 11th definition. That is what is cited. So, 9th and the 11th definition, that is what is cited here. That Swavyavahare para anapekshatvam, and then Avedyatve sati aporoksha vyavahara yogyatva. These are two definitions, 9th and 11th definition of Swayam Prakasha cited by Jīva Goswami here. So, of the in the last definition given by Chitsukacharya, the word yogyatva replaces the word vishayatva of the 10th definition, emphasizing that a self-luminous entity is capable of making itself visible, but not in the way that an object is visible to the perceiver. In the last definition given by Chitsukacharya, the word yogyatva replaces the word vishayatva of the 10th definition, emphasizing that a self-luminous entity is capable of making itself visible, but not in the way that an object is visible to the perceiver. Since the last definition is an improvement upon the 10th definition, Srila Jīva Goswami has not taken the later into consideration. In addition, he has somewhat modified the 9th definition. Using these two definitions of Swayam Prakasha, Jīva Goswami explains the necessity of the word swasmai used in connection with Swayam Prakasha in Jāmatra Muni's verses. So, Jīva Goswami has quoted the 9th and the 11th definition given by Chitsukacharya for the Swayam Prakasha. So, since the last definition is an improvement upon the 10th, Jīva Goswami has not taken the later into consideration. In addition, he has somewhat modified the 9th, using these two definitions of Swayam Prakasha, that is 9th definition and the 11th definition. Jīva Goswami explains the necessity of the word swasmai used in connection with Swayam Prakasha in Jāmatra Muni's verses. So, when we want to give a definition to something, any entity, the definition should be free from three kinds of defects. The three defects are called as avyapti dosha. Avyapti dosha means under extension. Ativyapti dosha means overextension. And asambhava dosha means impossibility. So, for example, I'll give an example. So, what is avyapti dosha? Lakshanasya lakshyasya ekadeshe avrittitvam. So, lakshana means a definition. Lakshya means what is that object you want to define? That is the lakshya. What is the object for which you want to give a definition? That is the lakshya. So, avyapti dosha means lakshanasya lakshyasya ekadeshe avrittitvam. So, suppose you are given a definition for a particular object, but that definition is not present in at least that definition is not present in some classes of that object. The example, simple example is, suppose you want to define a cow. So cow is a lakshya. Suppose I give a definition of a cow as Shweta Rupa Vatvam, Goho Lakshanam. Shweta Rupa Vatvam is a lakshana I am giving for the cow. Shweta Rupa Vatvam means that which is white in color is the lakshana of the cow. So when we take this definition, this Shweta Rupa Vatvam, because cows are having many different colors. Some cows are red in color, some cows are black in color, brown in color. So if we say the Shweta Rupa Vatvam Goho Lakshanam, this definition is not present in many other varieties of the cows. So therefore, there is a avyapti dosha. Avyapti dosha means under extension. Lakshanasya lakshyasya ekadeshe avrittitva. This definition will not cover all the categories of the cows. This definition will cover only the white colored cows. Therefore, there is avyapti dosha. And then suppose what is ativyapti dosha? Lakshanasya alakshe vrittitva. Suppose you are giving a definition of a cow, and that definition is also present in something other than the cow. Say, for example, Shringitvam Goho Lakshanam. Shringa means a horn. Suppose Shringitvam is the Lakshana of the goat. Then the Shringa is not only present in the cow, it is also present in something which is not the cow. So there is a ativyapti dosha.
We cannot hear you, Prabhuji.
You're not able to hear?
No. You just spoke about that horn. That's it. We couldn't hear after that.
When you say
Shringit, that much we heard.
Shringitvam Goho Lakshanam, if you say that cow is something which has a horn, then this will also applicable to something other than the cow. Because many other animals also have horns. Therefore, this definition will also refer to other animals. There is a ativyapti dosha, overextension. And then there is a asambhava dosha. Lakshanasya lakshye kutrapi avartamanatvam. Yata goho ekashapavatvam lakshanam. Suppose a definition, you are giving a definition of a cow, and such a definition is not present in any of the cows. Such a definition is not present in even in any cow in the whole world. And that is the asambhava dosha. For example, eka shapavatvam lakshanam. In the cow, in the bottom portion of the leg of the cow, I don't know what is the term in English. Cow always has dvishapa. It has in the bottom portion of the leg of the cow, there are like, there will be some kind of a breakage will be there. It will be dvishapavatvam.
Is it hoof? Hoof, Prabhu?
Hoof, probably. A cow will, all the cows, if you take any cow, it will have two hoofs actually. Eka shapavatvam you will never find in any cow actually. Eka shapavatvam cannot be found in any category of cow. So if we say eka shapavatvam is the lakshana of the cow, then such a lakshana will not be present in any category of the cow. That is called as asambhava dosha. In the case of avyapti dosha, at least the lakshana which you are giving is present in some categories of the cows, but in some categories it is not present. In the case of ativyapti dosha, the definition which you are giving is also present in something which is not a cow. Overextension. But in asambhava dosha, the definition you are giving is not present in any category of the cow. That is asambhava dosha. So therefore, when you want to define an object, the definition should be free of these three dosha. This is a general concept of a definition. In fact, in the some other time we'll discuss, but in the definition of a Shuddha Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, Rupa Goswami has given such a definition that it is free from all these three doshas. Before Rupa Goswami, there are also other definitions of Shuddha Bhakti. But in those definitions, some of these faults were there. Avyapti dosha was there. Ativyapti dosha was there. Like that. But Rupa Goswami's definition of Uttama Bhakti is free from all these three faults. So coming back here, so if a definition applies only to some members of a class to be defined, while excluding others, it is called as avyapti dosha. That is just now whatever explained. Underextended. If one defines a man as being with 2 legs and black hair, this would exclude man with a blonde hair. This would exclude a man with, suppose a bald person who does not have any hair. Or suppose somebody has a white hair. This will include those category of men. This is avyapti dosha. If a definition applies not only to all the members of the class to be defined, but also to non-members also, then it is overextended. Ativyapti dosha. For example, if one defines a man as being with 2 hands, this would include monkeys also, because monkeys also have 2 hands. If a definition is not applicable to any member of a class, then it entails a asambhava dosha. If one defines a man as being with 3 legs, you will not find any man with 3 legs. This is an asambhava dosha. A flawless definition must be free of these 3 kinds of 3 defects. So Jīva Goswami argues above that if the word swasmai is not used along with the Swayam Prakasha, then the term self-luminous could apply to a light bulb. Then the term self-luminous could apply to a light bulb, which is the defect of ativyapti. If the Jivatma's characteristic is that swasmai swayam prakasha. But if we don't include the word swasmai, if we say the Jivatma is only Swayam Prakasha, but this definition will also include a light bulb, there will be Ativyapti dosha. So if the first definition, that is not dependent on any other source for illumination, that is Swayam Prakasha is adopted, that is the Swayam Prakasha meaning, the first definition is adopted, then this can also apply to a lamp, because we do not need another light source to see a lamp. Therefore, apart from Swayam Prakasha, Swasmai should also needs to be added to Swayam Prakasha. So therefore, the Chitsukasaryas definition for the Swayam Prakasha, only the first meaning. In the first meaning will have Ativyapti dosha. Therefore, Swasmai Swayam Prakasha should be added. In the second of the Chitsuka's definitions of Swayam Prakasha, there are two stipulations. Avedyatve sati aparoksha vyavahara yogyatvam. It should be Avedyatve and aparoksha vyavahara yogyatvam. Avedyatve means imperceptible. Aparoksha vyavahara yogyatvam means capable of being immediately or directly realized. If the literal meaning of avedyatva as unknowable were intended, then it would contradict the second condition. Avedyatva, literally it means that unknowable. Then it would contradict the second condition. The second condition is what? Capable of being immediately or directly realized. It will contradict the second condition. So therefore, since anything that is unknowable cannot be directly perceived. But in Advaita Vedanta, the term Avedyatva is used in the specific sense of uncognizable through external sense perception. So in the Advaita Vedanta, perception is understood as having two parts. Vritti Vyapyatva and Phala Vyapyatva. So this part will actually discuss in the next class. So if I will we'll continue from this in the next class. So today summarize what we discussed was that the 25th anuccheda and 26th anuccheda are simple. The 25th anuccheda, Maitreya Rishi's verse, Ishvarasya vimuktasya karpanya mutabandhanam. Although the Jivatma is having the intrinsic characteristic of a controllership and being unbound, but because of Maya, the living entity becomes bound and experiences misery. 26th Anucheda, we saw the shloka from the Puranjan section, that the Jivatma deluded and cheated of his entire nature by the queen. The ignorant king impotently imitated his wife without wanting to, like a pet animal. So this shloka also indicates that the Jivatma is intrinsically endowed with the potency. So that is why he becomes deluded or he becomes cheated. So that is also indicated. And then the 27th Anucheda, we are discussing the 6th and 7th quality of the Jivatma. Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. So in that we discussed that Jivatma is conscious of itself and also self-luminous. A light bulb is only self-luminous but not conscious of itself. The Jivatma is Swasmai Swayam Prakasha. So in that regard, we were discussing the two definitions of Swayam Prakashatva given by Chit Sukacharya. And Jīva Goswami's comments on that. So that point is still yet to be completed. And we also discussed how there are three defects in a definition. Yeah, proper definition should be free from three defects: avyapti dosha, ativyapti dosha, and asambhava dosha. If the Jivatma is defined only as a Swayam Prakasha, then that this will also include a light bulb. The light bulb also is a characteristic of Swayam Prakasha. Further points we'll see in the next class. Any questions? Okay. So you must go through what we discussed. I hope we all have the PDF files. Unless you go through it, you will not be able to go through. Remember, you have to read through it. After every class, at least that section which we have covered, go through the section. Or even before the class also.
The stars and moon don't have their light, and they reflect the light of the sun, right? So stars.
Stars and moons. Yeah,
They
they
don't
get
have.
the light.
uh,
They get the light from the sun. So they can be Vyavahara, they can be called as Swayam Prakasha. So they get in fact, all the bulbs, everything, they get light from the sun. Whether the stars or moon or anything, it gets light from the sun. So, Vyavahara point of view, moon is Swayam Prakasha. A bulb is Swayam Prakasha. Yeah, bulb also needs the help of electricity. Those things are there, but then Vyavahara point of view, it is Swayam Prakasha. Okay. We will stop here. So, next week, we'll have to have class on Thursday. So we have planned two classes. Next Saturday, because I will be in the train. The next week we'll have on Thursday night, 8 o'clock. Okay. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada
Jai.
ki jai.
Jai.